Then came the lies. "Oh, babe, I was out with Sarah last night. We had too many drinks, so I crashed at her place." Sarah, her coworker, who I happen to know was on a 3-week vacation in Spain. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I waited. I gathered evidence. I played the role of the clueless husband while I tracked her every move. The truth? It didn't surprise me. The moment I saw her wrapped around that bastard in the backseat of his car like some cheap whore, the love I had for her rotted away. But love wasn't what kept me in check. No, it was patience. It was the quiet, calculated resolve of a man who knew he was about to burn his entire world to the ground, and enjoy every second of it. This wasn't going to be a simple divorce. No. This was going to be a reckoning. I walked into the house that night like nothing was wrong. Like I hadn't just spent an hour parked across the street, watching my wife straddle another man in the front seat of his luxury sedan. She was already home, curled up on the couch with a glass of wine, dressed in one of those silk robes I used to love peeling off her. Now, it just looked like a costume, something to sell the illusion of a devoted wife. "Hey, baby," she cooed, flashing me that fake smile she'd perfected over the years. "Long day?" I smiled back, slipping my arms around her waist, breathing in the scent of expensive perfume and betrayal. "The longest," I murmured against her neck. Her body tensed for half a second, just a flicker of guilt, maybe, or paranoia, before she melted into me. I had been distant for weeks, pretending to be stressed, overworked. I wanted her to think she was getting away with it. I wanted her to relax, to grow careless. And she did. She rested her head on my shoulder, sighing like she actually missed me, like she wasn't out there spreading her legs for another man hours ago. I clenched my jaw, forcing down the disgust curling in my gut. "Not yet." "How about a weekend getaway?" I asked, rubbing small circles against her lower back. She pulled away just enough to look up at me, her eyes widening slightly. "A getaway?" she repeated, as if the thought of spending more time with me was something foreign. "Yeah," I said smoothly. "Just the two of us. I feel like we need it." She hesitated for just a second, but then she smiled again, slower this time. Calculating. "I'd love that." I kissed her forehead and murmured, "Good." She had no idea. No idea that I had already been in contact with a divorce attorney. That I had gone through her phone while she slept, gathered every incriminating text, every explicit photo, every filthy promise she had made to that bastard. No idea that I had something far worse planned than just walking away. This wasn't going to be a breakup. This was going to be her downfall. She thought she was clever. Thought she was outmaneuvering me. I could see it in the way she carried herself in the following days, lighter, more confident, like she had finally figured out how to juggle the life of a cheating wife without getting caught. I played along, kept my smiles warm and my kisses soft. I booked us a weekend at a secluded mountain lodge, somewhere private, somewhere perfect for what I had planned. She gushed about it to her friends, probably thinking I was the oblivious husband trying to rekindle a marriage she had already set on fire. The truth? I wanted her alone. I wanted her isolated. And I wanted to watch her world crumble with no one around to save her. The night before we were set to leave, I made sure she had one last evening of peace. I cooked her favorite meal, poured her favorite wine, and listened while she filled the silence with meaningless chatter. She had no idea that while she was telling me about her day, I was looking straight into the abyss of my own fury. "You are really making me feel guilty," she teased, twirling a piece of pasta around her fork. I raised an eyebrow. "For what?" She smirked. "For being a bad wife." If only she knew how right she was. I reached across the table, squeezing her hand gently. "Don't be ridiculous. We've both been busy. This trip will be good for us." She smiled, leaning forward to kiss me. I kissed her back, and for the first time in our marriage, I felt nothing but revulsion. Tomorrow, the game would begin. Tomorrow, I would make sure she finally understood the consequences of betraying a man like me. The drive to the lodge was quiet. Not the comfortable silence of a couple at peace, but the silence of two people living in different realities. She thought she was escaping into a romantic getaway, a husband desperate to win her back. I knew better. She glanced at me a few times, her gaze lingering longer than usual. Maybe she was trying to convince herself she still loved me. Maybe she was wondering if she had overplayed her hand. Either way, it didn't matter. The closer we got to the lodge, the more the wilderness swallowed us whole. Towering pines, winding roads, the occasional glimpse of a frozen lake in the distance. Isolated. Private. The perfect stage. I had chosen this place carefully. It wasn't just any resort, it was a high-end lodge with private cabins, a place where guests respected privacy, where no one would question if they heard raised voices or a door slamming in the dead of night. When we pulled up to the main lodge, she stretched, sighing in satisfaction. "Wow, babe. You really went all out." I smiled, stepping out of the car and grabbing our bags. Only the best for my wife. I led her inside, the warmth of the fireplace in the lobby making her practically glow with satisfaction. She had no idea that every step she took was another nail in her coffin. At the front desk, I handed over my credit card and ID. The receptionist, a woman in her late 40s with a knowing smile, slid the key across the counter. "Cabin 14. Secluded, just like you requested." "Perfect." As I took the key, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, pretending to check messages while I watched my wife from the corner of my eye. A text flashed on the screen. From an unknown number. "He doesn't suspect anything, right? I can't wait to see you when you're back. I miss your body." I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to remain still. "Oh, sweetheart. You have no idea." Sliding my phone back into my pocket, I turned to her with a warm smile. "Ready to see our cabin?" She grinned, completely unaware of the storm that was about to hit her. Cabin 14 was everything I needed it to be, secluded, quiet, and far enough from the main lodge that no one would hear a thing. The moment we stepped inside, my wife let out an appreciative hum, running her fingers along the rustic wooden table, taking in the stone fireplace, the massive bed draped in thick blankets. "This is perfect," she sighed, tossing her coat onto a chair. "It really feels like we're the only two people in the world out here." I smiled. "That's the idea." She turned to me, her expression softer now, maybe even a little guilty. "I know I haven't been the best wife lately." I tilted my head, playing the part. "What do you mean?" She bit her lip, stepping closer, placing a hand on my chest. "I don't know. I feel like I've been distant. Distracted." Distracted? That was a hell of an understatement. I kept my expression neutral. "I just want us to enjoy this weekend. No stress, no worries." She smiled, relieved. "That sounds perfect." She had no idea. That night, we had dinner by the fireplace, drinking wine, laughing like things were normal. Like she wasn't a liar. Like I wasn't planning her destruction. When she fell asleep beside me, I carefully slid out of bed and grabbed her phone. I had already cloned it onto my own device before we left, but I wanted to see for myself. The messages were exactly what I expected. "I love you. I can't wait to be in your arms again. I wish I was there instead of with him. I'll find a way to leave him soon. Just be patient." I exhaled slowly, my grip tightening around the phone. She was planning to leave me. After everything, she still hadn't even considered telling me the truth. That was fine. By the time I was done with her, there wouldn't be anything left for her to walk away with. Slipping the phone back onto the nightstand, I lay back down beside her, draping an arm over her waist. She sighed in her sleep, pressing her body against mine like she still belonged to me. I smirked in the darkness. Tomorrow, the real fun would begin. The next morning, she woke up in my arms, stretching like a satisfied house cat. I slept so well," she murmured, turning to kiss my cheek. "You always make me feel so safe." Safe. The irony nearly made me laugh. I smiled at her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Good. We've got a big day ahead of us." She perked up. "Oh? What's the plan?" I had spent weeks setting this up, carefully orchestrating each move. I needed her to feel completely comfortable, completely oblivious. So I played the role of the doting husband a little longer. "Thought we could take a hike," I said, kissing her forehead. "There's a beautiful secluded spot a few miles from here. You'll love it." She grinned, completely unaware of what I really had in store. We ate breakfast together, sipping coffee, making small talk. Every time she smiled at me, every time she laughed, I wondered how many times she had smiled like that for him. How many times had she played the role of the loving wife to me, only to turn around and whisper sweet nothings to the bastard she was fucking behind my back. By the time we stepped outside, the air was crisp, the kind that sent a shiver down your spine. She pulled her jacket tighter around her body, slipping her hand into mine. "You seem different," she mused, squeezing my fingers. I raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" She hesitated. "I don't know. More affectionate." That was the problem with liars. They assumed everyone else played the same games they did. "I just missed you," I said softly, watching her eyes soften at my words. She thought she had me fooled. She thought she was still in control. That wouldn't last much longer. As we walked deeper into the forest, I let the silence stretch between us. She had no idea that every step she took was leading her closer to the edge, both figuratively and literally. Soon, she'd find out exactly what it felt like to be completely and utterly helpless. The deeper we hiked into the woods, the more isolated we became. The lodge was long behind us, the towering pines swallowing us whole. The path narrowed, winding along the edge of a steep ravine. One wrong step, and a person could disappear into the abyss below. Perfect. My wife walked ahead of me, completely unaware of how precarious her situation truly was. "This place is amazing," she said, breathless from the hike. She turned to me, smiling. "I feel like we're the only people in the world out here." I smirked. "We are." She didn't catch the edge in my voice, too distracted by the view to realize the walls were closing in around her. We reached a clearing with a small wooden bench overlooking the drop. She sat down, running a hand through her hair, exhaling happily. "This was a great idea," she admitted, looking up at me. "I really needed this." I stared at her, at the woman who had kissed me goodbye before running into another man's arms. The woman who had texted him just last night, promising him that she'd leave me soon. She didn't know that I had already decided to leave her first. I crouched in front of her, taking her hands in mine. She blinked, surprised by the sudden intimacy. "There is something I need to ask you," I said, keeping my voice steady. She tilted her head. "What is it?" I held her gaze, watching for the cracks. "Are you cheating on me?" Her entire body went rigid, but she recovered quickly, letting out a nervous laugh. "What? Of course not." "Lie." I need to know," I continued, my tone softer now, as if I were a man desperate for the truth. "I love you. But something's felt off." She squeezed my hands, shaking her head, eyes wide with faux sincerity. "Baby, no. I would never." "Lie." I exhaled slowly, nodding, as if I had bought her bullshit. Then, I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. Her messages appeared, projected for both of us to see. Every filthy word, every promise she made to him, every confession of love she had typed out behind my back. I watched as her face drained of color, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. The moment she looked up at me, fear finally creeping into her expression, I smiled. Cold. Calculated. "Try again." She stared at the screen like it was a death sentence. And in many ways, it was. Her fingers twitched in her lap, her breathing shallow. I can explain." I chuckled, shaking my head. "No, you can't." I scrolled through her messages, reading them out loud, savoring every tremor that passed through her body. "I love you. I can't wait to be in your arms again. I wish I was there instead of with him. I'll find a way to leave him soon. Just be patient." I turned the screen toward her again. "Tell me, sweetheart, was this before or after you kissed me goodnight?" She opened her mouth, then shut it, her eyes darting around like a trapped animal. I leaned in closer, lowering my voice. "You've been lying to my face for months. Sneaking around, fucking another man, and still coming home to me." She flinched. "Good. Dylan, please." I let out a sharp laugh. "Dylan? You want to beg now? Now that you've been caught?" Her hands trembled as she reached for me, but I jerked back before she could touch me. "Don't." My voice was pure steel now. "You lost the right to put your hands on me the moment you spread your legs for him." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't feel a damn thing. No sympathy. No regret. Nothing. She had turned me into this. "You have to understand," she whispered. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." I tilted my head. "Oh? What was it supposed to be like?" She swallowed hard, struggling to find an answer. I wasn't happy." A slow, cruel smirk spread across my face. "Oh, trust me, you'll be even less happy by the time I'm done with you." Her breath hitched. The realization was finally sinking in. This wasn't going to be a fight she could cry her way out of. This wasn't going to be a simple breakup. This was going to be her reckoning. She shot up from the bench, her breath coming in short, panicked bursts. "Please, Dylan, let's just talk about this." I leaned back against the wooden railing, folding my arms. "Talk? You mean the way you've been talking to him?" She flinched, guilt and fear flashing across her face. "It wasn't serious." I laughed. A cold, sharp sound. "Not serious? You told him you loved him. You told him you'd leave me for him. You fucked him in our bed, and you still have the audacity to stand here and lie to my face?" I was confused. She tried, stepping closer. "I got caught up in something I shouldn't have, but it didn't mean I stopped loving you." I shook my head slowly, watching her unravel. "You don't love me. You love what I provide for you." Her lips parted, but no words came out. She knew I was right. "I know about the money you've been siphoning out of our joint account," I continued, my voice calm, controlled. "I know about the apartment you were planning to get once your lover boy finally gave you the green light." She paled. I smirked. "Oh, did you think I didn't know? Did you think you were smarter than me?" She started shaking her head. "I wasn't." "You were," I interrupted. "You were planning to gut me financially before leaving me behind like some idiot who never saw it coming." Her silence was all the confirmation I needed. I stepped closer, lowering my voice to a whisper. "But you made a mistake." Her body trembled. What?" I smiled, slow and deliberate. "You underestimated me." The wind howled through the trees, carrying the weight of my words. Her eyes darted toward the path we had come from, as if considering running. I chuckled. "Go ahead. Run. But before you do, just know that I already took everything from you before you even realized it was gone." She frowned, confusion flickering across her face. "What do you mean?" I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a sleek, black envelope. Her hands trembled as she took it from me, slowly opening it. And then she saw it. The legal documents. The frozen bank accounts. The evidence of her infidelity, text messages, photos, credit card statements, hidden transactions. Every weapon I had meticulously gathered over the past few months, all laid out in one neatly bound packet. Her breathing turned erratic as she flipped through the pages. "Dylan. What is this?" I grinned. "This, my dear wife, is your downfall." She flipped through the papers, her face twisting in horror as the weight of it all sank in. This can't be real," she whispered, shaking her head as if denial would somehow change reality. "Oh, it's real," I said, my voice steady, cold. "Every cent you stole, every lie you told, every secret you thought was buried, I dug it all up." Her eyes darted to me, wild with panic. "Why? Why would you do this?" I laughed, a slow, dark chuckle. "Why? Because you didn't just cheat on me. You planned to destroy me, to humiliate me, to bleed me dry before walking away." She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. "Shut up," I said, my voice sharp as a blade. "I don't want to hear another fucking lie from your mouth." Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. Not pity. Not remorse. Just satisfaction. "You don't get it," I continued, stepping closer. "You thought you were in control. You thought you had me wrapped around your finger. But the truth is, I saw through you a long time ago." She swallowed hard, gripping the papers like they were the last thing keeping her tethered to reality. "Dylan, please. We can fix this." I smirked. "Oh, there's no fixing this." I reached into my pocket again, pulling out my phone. With a few taps, I sent a message. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She hesitated before pulling it out, her hands trembling. When she unlocked the screen, her face crumpled. Because now, her lover knew. I had sent him everything. Every document. Every screenshot. Every detail of her plan to leave me once she was financially secure. I could only imagine what he was thinking. "You see," I murmured, watching the realization dawn on her, "he was never going to save you. And now, he won't even want you." A choked sob left her lips as she scrolled through the messages, watching in real time as her life fell apart. And then, the final blow. Another buzz. She stared at the screen, her hands covering her mouth in horror. "Bank account, $0. I leaned in, whispering the final nail in her coffin. "You have nothing left," she gasped, her breath coming in short, panicked bursts. My money," she stammered, scrolling through her banking app as if the numbers would magically reappear. I watched her spiral, arms crossed over my chest, completely unmoved. "You mean my money?" I corrected. "The money you siphoned from our accounts? The money you thought you could stash away before running off to your little boy toy?" Her head snapped up, her face contorted with rage. "You had no right." I let out a sharp laugh. "No right? You stole from me. Lied to me. Fucked another man in my bed and still had the audacity to play the loving wife." I stepped closer, towering over her. "You don't get to play the victim now." Tears streamed down her face, but they meant nothing. She had done this to herself. "You ruined me," she whispered, voice barely audible. I tilted my head, feigning thought. "No. You ruined yourself. I just made sure you felt every bit of it." Her phone buzzed again. I watched as she hesitated before unlocking the screen. And there it was, the final betrayal. "Him, you're crazy. Don't ever contact me again." A broken sob tore from her throat as she dropped the phone, her body trembling. Her lover had abandoned her. She was alone. Completely and utterly alone. I crouched down, picking up the phone and holding it out to her. "Go on. Call him. See if he answers." She shook her head, refusing to take it. Coward. I let the phone fall to the ground at her feet. That's what I thought. For the first time since this all began, she had no words. No excuses. No manipulations. She just stood there, broken, lost. Exactly how I wanted her. I exhaled slowly, savoring the moment. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. She crumpled onto the bench, her hands shaking as she gripped the divorce papers like they were the last thing tethering her to reality. This isn't fair," she choked out, voice thick with despair. I scoffed. "Fair? You want to talk about fair?" I crouched in front of her, forcing her to meet my gaze. "Was it fair when you brought another man into our bed? Was it fair when you stole from me, when you planned to gut me financially before walking away like I was nothing?" I leaned in, my voice dropping to a whisper. "No, sweetheart. This is justice." Her lip trembled. "You." "What?" I taunted. "You going to tell me you didn't deserve this?" Silence. She couldn't. Because deep down, she knew I was right. Her whole body trembled as she stared at the paperwork, at the evidence of her own destruction. She flipped through the pages, her face crumbling as she read the details. Infidelity clause. Full financial restitution. No alimony. Frozen accounts. Legal action pending. It was all there. Ironclad. Unbreakable. She would walk away with nothing. And I would walk away free. She clutched the papers to her chest, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "What am I supposed to do?" I shrugged. "Figure it out." Her eyes shot to mine, panic replacing the grief. "Wait, Dylan, please. I have nowhere to go. No money. No." "That's not my problem," I interrupted, my voice cutting through her pleas like a knife. "You made your choices. Now you get to live with them." She reached for me, desperate now, but I stepped back. "No," I said coldly. "You don't get to touch me. You don't get to beg. You don't get to do anything but suffer." Tears streamed down her face, her entire body shaking. "I'm sorry." I smirked. "No, you're not. You're just sorry you got caught." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "Good." I turned away, taking a deep breath of the crisp mountain air. It was almost over. Just one more thing left to do. I stood there for a moment, watching her fall apart. The once confident, manipulative woman who thought she had outplayed me was nothing more than a broken mess, trembling in the cold, clutching the papers that sealed her fate. It was perfect. I reached into my pocket and pulled out one last item, a single, unmarked envelope. She looked up at me with wide, tear-streaked eyes as I tossed it onto her lap. "What? What is this?" she whispered. I smirked. "The final nail in your coffin." With shaking fingers, she tore it open. As her eyes scanned the contents, her breath hitched, her skin turning ghostly pale. Inside were screenshots, emails, text messages, phone call logs. Not just between her and her lover. but between him and his wife. Her whole body went rigid. No. Oh, yes, I said, my voice laced with satisfaction. You weren't just screwing around with some single guy, sweetheart. You were his side piece. His dirty little secret. And guess what? I crouched down beside her, lowering my voice to a whisper. She knows. A strangled sob left her lips as she frantically grabbed her phone, scrolling through her messages. Then she saw it. A message from her lover's wife. You disgust me. Stay away from my family. My husband never loved you. You were just an easy fuck. Her whole body shook. I stood, dusting off my hands. You thought you had it all figured out. That you could leave me and run to him. But now? I chuckled. Now, you have nothing. No money. No home. No lover. No future. She let out a broken sob, rocking back and forth on the bench. I turned away, finally done. But just before I walked off, I looked over my shoulder one last time. Oh, and by the way. I grinned. The hotel already checked us out. The car's gone. You'll have to figure out your own way home. Her head snapped up, panic flooding her face. Dylan, wait. You can't just leave me here. I smirked. Watch me. Then, without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving her stranded, broken, and completely, utterly destroyed. Justice was served. And I never looked back.